What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit a million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
Are you ready, kids? Get your parents' permission, check your mailbox, and grab your shopping cart. It's time for the Adventures in Collecting podcast.
I'm Eric.
And I'm Dave. Welcome to Adventures in Collecting, where we talk toy news, culture, and hauls,
along with our journeys as collectors. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Adventures in Collecting. Eric here. Something a little bit different. Video. I'm without Dave. Dave is on vacation in Disney World, enjoying his anniversary. And I'm here talking with McFarlane Toys, Todd McFarlane. Sorry, Dave. So McFarlane Toys had a pretty big announcement revealed today, synced up with the timing of this special episode of Adventures in Collecting that is available in video form for the first time. So we have a brief chat here with Todd McFarlane about the new news, which is, of course, the licensing deal that they have announced with Marvel Comics. So as Todd, you'll hear from him in just a minute. This is something he's really passionate about, something he's very excited about. He's kind of out there trying to collect the Triforce in terms of franchises. He's got Marvel Comics, he's got DC Comics, and hey, maybe Marvel Comics will be his inroad to Star Wars, and he can collect his Triforce. But that being said, you're about to hear a roughly 20-minute conversation between Todd and myself about the announcement, as well as a little bit about the announcement from a week ago regarding UFC. So enjoy this special episode of Adventures in Collecting. So, Todd, how's it going? Welcome back to Adventures in Collecting.
Sure. Thanks for having me again. Thanks for giving me the time.
Oh, pleasure's all mine, as always. So, I know you have a very big announcement today. Tell me about your latest deal here with Marvel Comics.
Yes, finally, for the first time in 30 years of doing toys, the Marvel and McFarlane M&M are gonna join and hopefully give you a tasty morsel. Look at, we like doing art as much as possible with the toys we've been doing for 30 years, but I've always been jealous at people and some of the brands that they've been able to get. I haven't been able to get myself. And the three that for decades I was always looking at were like Star Wars and DC and Marvel, right? To me, those are like sort of the triangle. And I just go, man, if I could do a little bit of each one of those, I'd be happy. So we got, a few years back, we got one of the pieces with the DC multiverse, but now knocking down one of the other big giant sort of pillars, Marvel comic books. And in this case, it allows me, because it's not based on the movies and things like that, it allows me to not only make figures from the Marvel universe, but also do figures of artwork I also did, right? Which again may seem a little odd and or eccentric on my part, but as a creative person, you're always curious, going, yeah, what would that look like if you turned it around and you did it? Because you only have to draw it on a 2D piece of paper. So So here we go. McFarlane gets to do McFarlane Toys, gets to do McFarlane artwork, helped designed by McFarlane himself, as well as everything else in the Marvel library, right? So we get to go back all the way to Fantastic Four #1 with Jack and Stan and everything that just came out yesterday. So we'll pick and choose different books, covers, characters, artists, moments, interior artwork, all the above. Play with different price points and scale, and again, they're posable figures, right? Again, to be clear, they're not articulated figures, right? Because Marvel, Disney has a big relationship with Hasbro, obviously, and so they're they want to protect that. But I didn't want to carve out a niche over the years with them, even if I could, that like forced me to do something that was kind of goofy, right? I mean, you've seen these things where it's like, oh, you get to do like, big head stuff or big feet stuff or, whatever. I just go, no, I don't want to do it. I want to figure out a way to do cool figures. And so we've finally figured it out. Took a long time, but we finally figured it out.
Well, the first two pieces that we've seen, the Spider-Man and the Captain America, not only is it cool to see, your art brought into, kind of the 3D space, but as a longtime collector, it actually immediately, the first thing I thought of was when you did those kind of 3D album covers, like thinking back to like the Master of Puppets and, that kind of look. It almost looked like it fell kind of right in line with the format of those, which I thought was really neat.
I was thinking about those the other day, coincidentally, of going, hey, I wonder if we actually did, sort of bring back that cover artwork with the sort of the embossing, if you will. Whether people would like that. We may try some of that. I don't know if they'll let us do it or whatever else. But for right now, again, you got the figure and then sort of a backdrop and a diorama that they're sitting on and trying to create a little bit of a scene. Some of them are going to come with reprints of comic books. In some cases, the comic book reprinted will be specific to that actual image that we used, one way or the other. But we're going to be playing with scale and price points and things like that, because like out of the gate, we tried to make them all within scale, but because, you don't get to sort of like stand them up and bend them down or whatever else. The ones that are in crouches and guys like Spider-Man, who's always constantly, in some contorted shape, right, can come across as being a little bit smaller than somebody who's standing straight up, barking to the heavens. So there's a part of me that just goes, I don't know. I mean, we're playing to the completist. I don't know if we should do that. We should just give as much value in a box as possible and let everybody else sort of deal with it on their own. So we'll play around and we'll let the customers, the fans, basically tell us what they're enjoying and what they're not.
So what has it been like for you, though, to go back to some of those pieces that you did, looking at that Spider-Man, for instance, and start to kind of like reimagine it outside of that 2D plane? Like, do you go back and look at like the original art and, try to kind of mess with it in your head? Like what's the process like?
Okay. So let me tell you the difficulties of translating my own artwork first off. And, which is, I would argue, more of a problem on my artwork than for others, especially on Spider-Man. When I was drawing Spider-Man, I was doing him. I really didn't give a lot of care to anatomy, right? I just went, no, that's super cool, right? But if you ever tried to go into that position, you couldn't, right? It was one of the things that Sam Raimi found out when he did the first Spider-Man movie way back. I had some people worked on it and they had a bunch of my artwork there and he wanted to like simulate it. And then he found out that it's like, couldn't get any of the stuntmen to do it. And then he was like, well, go get double jointed people. And they couldn't do it. And like, what about triple jointed? And then they went to I heard Circus du Soleil in Vegas get some of the contortionists. And it's still, and then they went, maybe we'll just have to do a computer generated, right? because then you can sort of in motion when you're sort of doing it, it sort of looks cool and you don't really pay attention to it. What that means on the toy front is that, okay, if we now, it looks really good at that one flat 2D image, but if we have to now make this a real body and we got to turn it around, how are you figuring this out, right? So I've put myself in a bit of a pickle and my sculptors in a bit of a pickle going, how does it work? Like if his hips are there and his rib cage is there, like this doesn't make any sense. So we'll probably have to take a little bit of artistic license on my own stuff, just to figure it out. But that's part of the fun of it, of just going, well, what does it look like from the side? What does it look like from the back? And what's interesting is that even if you take like this figure, if you turn it like 30 degrees, it doesn't become recognizable that it's that, right?
Yeah.
Because you're just so used to seeing that unmoving at that angle. So you have to make a good toy that sort of will stand up on its own. But if you have it and you turn it right at the right angle, you should be able to put it like right there next to it and you go, there it is.
Yeah.
Right? There's the one there. As soon as you move it here or here, it goes away. The illusion goes away. But if you get it right there, you go, there it is. And so to me, when we were sculpting, I wanted to make sure that when we got it to that A pose, that was as accurate as possible. And everything else we could bend because nobody has that other information in their heads, right? None of the fans can say, oh no, that side shot shouldn't look like that, because nobody's had that information. So we get the front shot perfect, and then I'm sure everybody will be gracious for the rest of it.
So you mentioned a couple of famous comic book covers that you were talking about going all the way back to Jack and Stan stuff, but do you have kind of a hit list of panels or covers that like you're already thinking about that you want to try to tackle with this line?
I do, but I want to make sure that I don't put my own personal bias into this too much, right? I think there's probably 40 different Spider-Man poses that I could do of my own artwork, because I put them in a lot of funky upside down, swinging, legs up, arms back, heads forward, whatever. Like he did, I did a lot of cool stuff. And so we're going to have fun with that, so that you could actually technically get 10 McFarlane Spideys and they all look different. But the other ones where I get to pick my sort of the people that inspired me and or my contemporaries and or now the new generation of artists, I want to make sure that I'm paying sort of true sort of honor to the history of Marvel comic books, from FF #1, that was their first book that started, to today, right? So, and here's the thing, it's sort of like Star Wars or Star Trek. You can tell how old somebody is, but if you just ask them this one question: who's your captain?
Yeah,
right.
True.
And so, to me, there's a little bit of that in the back of my brain that I go, oh man, that cover and that character and that event were like, that really sort of seared me as a fan, right?
Yeah.
So what were those moments 20 years prior to that, when I was still an infant? And what are those ones 20 years post that? Like what are the equivalent of the new character coming that was like, oh man, I was there when Venom was created and Carnage was created. But what's the modern version of that? I was there when, the marriage of Sue and Reed Richards. What's the modern version of that? I was there with the gauntlet, the Thanos Infinity Gauntlet. Okay, what's the modern version of that? Because every generation has their equal that basically is their thunderbolt that basically goes, man, that was my favorite. And I want to make sure that we touch on all of it.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
This segment is brought to you by our friends at Chubsy Wubsy Toys. A traditional mom-and-pop toy store in Little Falls, New Jersey, Chubsy Wubsy Toys brings you the best new toys from the brands you love without the hassle of pounding the pavement searching for them at larger retail stores. Visit them in person at their brand new home at 101 Newark Pompton Turnpike, Suite 1 in Little Falls, New Jersey, or online at ChubsyWubsy.com. That's ChubsyWubzzy.com. And tell them Adventures in Collecting sent you.
Hey y'all, Darius Rucker here. You know, a lot of people ask me, what inspires your music? And one of the big things is a strong sense of place. That's why I love my home state of South Carolina and want to share the awesome things it has to offer. From the beautiful mountains down to the sunny coast, it's got it all. Not to mention two of my personal favorites, great golf and amazing food. Come see why I love this place. Visit discoversouthcarolina.com.
And now, back to the show.
Very cool. Yeah, and I mean, it's great to hear that you kind of have access to pretty much the entire library, because outside of the stuff that I think, people think of you, when they think of Marvel, there's so much of that dark horror kind of, gross and monstrous stuff, in the library too, that, I definitely plays to the McFarlane Toys strong suit.
Who knows? Someday we might do Fing Fang Foom, right? So I don't know. Yeah, there's, I mean, again, we find it with the DC Multiverse. The library are so extensive because they're now, for Marvel, it's over 60 years old, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot to draw from. And it doesn't have to be event, doesn't have to even be covers. I mean, we're starting with some sort of popular covers, but it doesn't even have to be that. It can just be, to me, at some point, the best art and the best figures we can come up with. And if that happened to have been on page 6 of a comic book, so be it, right? Our job is to come up with good art. We'll make sure that we take that artwork and we put it on the box so people know what it is we're using as our inspiration. But I don't think we should necessarily limit ourselves down to it. So, like, I'll give you an example. Like, we'll do like the first appearance of Deadpool, right? Again, good cover, iconic cover, great drawn. Rob Liefeld did a good one, but Rob Liefeld did hundreds of drawings of Deadpool. I'm sure if I asked him, was the very first one you did, was that like the coolest one you ever did? He might go, no, man, I did this one in this issue, and this one in this issue, and this one in this issue. And so, okay, I don't think we have to be limited to just go, we're only going to do the first appearance Deadpool by Rob Liefeld. There might be some other ones that are kind of cool. We don't have to be stuck with just Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man cover poses when there were so many that were on the inside, right? Or whatever. I'm making it up, but we've all done literally thousands of drawings, and my job should be to call through some of the they don't all have to be important. Some of them can just be damn cool. Like, yeah, we can make a figure of that. Who cares if it was like a popular book or not? Like, that's just cool. Let's make that.
So, as always, you're a busy guy. I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention the fact that this is coming on the heels of another really big announcement that you had with the partnership with UFC. So not only will you be making stuff for Marvel Comics, but now you're branching into the ultimate fighting realm. How did you find yourself getting into the octagon there?
Well, again, I mean, we try to license things that are popular out in pop culture. Right. And UFC, kudos to them, basically started this idea, and it just has continued to evolve and grow. Right. And so we've had conversations with them off and on. I've actually had one or two of my employees actually go and work for them. And so I think in this case, that's maybe how part of it. Somebody either that used to work for me or somebody that we knew or whatever is at UFC. And so they're like, hey, Todd, do you have any interest in doing some of these figures? And it's like, yeah, sure, cool, right? So Yeah, and again, we've done, sports figures. So it's not like we're new to this game. And so you just go, okay, who are the ones that people want to see, that the fans want to see? And then what kind of poses should we put them in, and how accurate can we get all of that? And then, pour it out and hope that you do it justice so that the person themselves like it, and the fans think it was a worthwhile, worthy sort of replica of that human being that they admire so much.
And like your other the other sports figures that you've done both in the past and are doing today, these are also going to be kind of pre-posed figures, the UFC ones.
Man, are they? I'm trying to think. Think so. I think we're starting with the UFC is, yeah. I mean, again, sort of the easy sort of term is like plastic statues, right?
Yeah.
You get them; they look really cool. They come across as like statues that can cost $80 to $100, but you can get them out to the marketplace for $20 or $30, right? I mean, again, we did it for the football, baseball, basketball, hockey. They didn't have moving parts. Right. No, yeah. And they were a huge success because people just wanted replicas of their favorite people to put up on their shelf and go, man, that's my favorite. Right. I think, again, I've always said before, I think a lot of older toy collectors, I know that we get poked fun at, and people go, they're mentally arrested and stuff because you get like, the 40-year-old virgin and stuff like that, and those kinds of things. I don't think it's true. I think people collect toys for the most part to sort of show off their loyalty towards things, right? And we do it with T-shirts where we have logos, and we put on hats that have logos. And I think toys are just another way of saying, I like that brand. I like that thing. And then you put them in your cubicle, and you're just like, hey, cool, here it is. And somebody walks by and they go, what? Is that a Ted Lasso figure? Man, I didn't know you liked Ted Lasso. Yeah, I like Ted Lasso. You see last night's episode? And then all of a sudden you're having a conversation, right? That's all it is, right? I think people sort of are overthinking a lot of times why we just buy stuff. We're just endorsing it. Like if you like the Boston Red Sox, you buy a jersey and a hat and a pennant and it's all just got logos on it, but you're basically going, because I like those Red Sox, right? I like watching that team. And you just buy this sort of other side product, but it's all saying that you like that brand.
It's amazing. Well, I can't wait to see, the first two Marvel pieces look fantastic. Can't wait to see, what you have cooking for UFC and of course what's coming down the line. And I know we're at time, so I just want to thank you again for chatting with me, and yeah, looking forward to what's next.
Sure. Before we go, what's got you excited these days?
Oh man, actually, speaking of gross things, I just picked up this from Four Horsemen Studios.
Oh yeah,
the figure obscura Mask of the Red Death. Oh. It literally comes with one of the most badass accessories. It's got a grandfather clock that's bleeding.
Oh, that's funny.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought that, all these years later, an Edgar Allan Poe story would make a great action figure? But here we are.
Yeah. Look at. I think there's a misnomer when you say action figure. People sort of think like kiddie stuff.
Yeah.
And to me, action figure is like saying movie. Right.
Yes.
And if you say, hey, I went to a movie, that can be something that is aimed at a 5-year-old, and it could be something that like a drama based on a true event that can be aimed at a 65-year-old. Right. So they're both movies. The only difference is the content. Right. Yep. So to me, comic books, toys are kind of the same thing. Novels are all the same thing. That there's a format to them. But then it's like, well, what's the content? And depending on the content, I'll tell you who I think the audience is.
Yeah.
Right? You do Teletubbies, I'm guessing it's going to be skew or young. You do, Predator, I'm guessing it's going to skew a little bit older. Right? So, but they're both action figures. Yep. So and this is the piece. Like I always tell people, look, I understand you collect comic book. I'm a comic book guy. I understand you don't collect comic books. It's hard for me to imagine that you go into a comic book store, anybody, and you can't find one thing in there.
Yeah,
you might not like superheroes, fine, but there are still hundreds of options of non-superhero stuff. So if you want romance, you want comedy, you want drama, you want autobiographical stuff. I mean, there's like a whole slew of stuff here, right? What you're thinking of when you say comic book, you're thinking of Superman and Archie comics because that's what you read when you were a kid. And when you say action comics, you say, oh, that was a toy because I had it when I was a kid. What you're not paying attention to is that all of these things have grown up.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I got to shout out too is Purple Glove's debut Batman. One hell of a figure, dude. I mean, I love the new cape, the wired, the purple gloves. This is just, I never thought I would have this.
It's interesting because sometimes you do stuff that you go, it kind of doesn't look good or it looks wrong, but you go, but it's accurate.
Yeah, no, this is great. It's just the right amount of like goofy for this debut look. Yeah, perfect. Nailed it. Thank you, dear listener, for hanging out with us today. Subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen, and then tell your friends to do it. Thanks also to Joe Azari, the golden voice behind our intro. Our music is Game Boy Horror by the Zombie Dandies. Find more about them both in our show notes.
Follow us on social media at AIC_podcast on Instagram and Twitter. Stop by and say hi, show us your toy hauls, and share your toy stories. Maybe we'll talk about it in a future episode.
Don't try this at home. Void where prohibited and some assembly required. Each sold separately, not a flying toy. Consult a physician if your toy run exceeds more than 4 hours.
This has been a non-productive media presentation. Executive producer, Frank Hablawi. This program and many others like it on the Non-Productive Network is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives license. Please share it, but ask before trying to change it or sell it. For more information, visit non-productive.com.